So this is our dinner for today. I have stuffed squash, acorn squash with quinoa, and well, it's like a moussaka sort of flavored thing because I have the thyme, oregano, and allspice in there with eggplant, onions, garlic, tomato, and I put quinoa in also. So that's my protein source for this, and then I made a tiny little cute one for James because he has plenty of food and he likes potatoes more than I do. So he has 2 potatoes with the avocado and I just have the one. And he has sauerkraut and I have sauerkraut. And he has snap peas and so do I. And we're having smoothies with this and greens powder and almond milk. And his has yams and carrots in it also as well. But it should be good. We're going to talk about the Celtic world, the great course, and it's a great one. I really enjoyed it. I thought she was an awesome instructor. I couldn't imagine a more awesome instructor. Now, it didn't provide the information, as much of the information about the like Celtic mysticism and stuff like that, right? That I would have liked to see, and about different cultures merging in to influence religion and practices and stuff like that. But she provided so much history. She was interested in a lot of things that that are truly interesting, like the art. The tapestries, stuff like that, which, or the book pages. Is that what they were called, the book pages? I can't remember. We watched it a little while ago. But with the intricate designs. It's very nice.
They'd be like the Book of Kells, and the Lindisfarne book is nothing. I don't know if it was Celtic, but they tend to be something like title pages, but they're not quite title pages.
Yeah. Well, anyway, so she was interested in stuff like that, and she also pointed out a lot of things like the music and dancing and stuff, which I had no idea that the river dance sort of dancing. I can't remember what it was called. She gave the name for it in there. If you're interested, I wasn't really. But anyway, so that sort of dancing wasn't actually traditional. It came from England. The one that was traditional to Ireland, that is not, I suppose they'd both be Celtic people, but anyway, so the Irish, the one that was Irish historically looked like a silly walk, and I can't remember what that one was called either, but I didn't enjoy that one nearly so much, and I don't think anybody does because we don't see it really. But I did really like. I think the music that I liked was called lilting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that. It was, the stuff that goes do de dum dum diddly dum. Yeah, where they just fill in whatever with some nonsense words, and
it's what's known in jazz as scatting.
Sure. Only theirs is way more fun.
I think it's better.
So fun. And any child would pick it up. So it's like the best thing to start using for children's music. Because they can figure out the words of do diddly dum. And anyway. So I love that. But anyway, what did you want to say about the Great Course?
Well, it lived up to the name great. she seems to like this stuff. She seems to be a nice person too.
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking at her last name. Could easily be her married name. It's English. That's a bit of a surprise.
Yeah, well, she talked about where her ancestors came from and stuff too, right?
I didn't
So-
catch that.
Mm-hmm.
Might have been on the road or something.
I don't know. You might have been sleeping. James
Yeah.
falls asleep a lot.
It doesn't matter how interesting
Mhm.
something is. If I've eaten
Mm-hmm.
on the chemo that I'm on, it just knocks me out. So, not a reflection on the course if I fell asleep during part.
Yeah. Because
I have to watch when I'm taking course. It doesn't matter how interesting. At university, I got to make sure I take notes.
Or you'll just
Otherwise,
fall asleep.
Well, it never happened, but for a while I was taking one course. I'm not going to mention which because it's a very nice prof, and I was actually auditing it for free.
Mm-hmm.
But I found myself drifting off, and I was going, that's really, well, it's not really disrespectful, but it would seem that way. So, because he was offering it to me for free, right, to audit it. But I'm going, I just got to keep writing notes. And that's plenty fine. That physical activity keeps me away.
Oh, definitely. I mean, I don't understand all of this trouble with, I mean, talking about American Vandal again. Obviously, this guy has some maybe ADHD kind of
You've got all
issues.
sorts of problems.
But just at some point, just learn how to take notes. If you're taking notes, whatever you're doing, you will stay focused. You'll stay focused.
I think so. There might be some people who have real problems focusing, but it might be worth a try.
Mm-hmm. But I didn't find you'd need to for her course. I mean, you want to because she provided a lot of interesting information, but
Yeah.
if you're into that sort of thing, boy, she's good. But
It's a different kind of culture.
Mm-hmm.
Not typically Western. The farthest west you can go in Europe pretty well.
Mm-hmm. And it explains a lot about, like she pulled a lot of current culture into it to try and the history to explain why things are the way that they are now. And she did a great job with that. Like for example, the Scottish people having a similar kind of culture, right? But ending up differently than the
Very
Irish,
different.
right? And how
Much
and why.
more stereotypically Western, like how left-wingers have stereotyped the West. That's the way the Scottish tend to be, like careful with money, into learning, into industry, working hard, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
All those things that fake left-wingers nowadays do not value.
And really, when it comes down to it, more than anything, it's religion.
Well, that's what changed it. Yeah. Belief systems actually have a real impact on human behavior. They're intended to. It's kind of silly for fake left-wingers to be going around saying, like it doesn't matter what belief system, like people are poor because they're being exploited. No, they're poor possibly because they're being exploited, but their belief systems make them exploitable in many cases. So now there's some belief systems like make people exploitable because they're pacifists or something like that, or pacifistic. That frankly is why Christians lost basically half their countries to a certain religion starting about 650 or even earlier AD.
Yep.
They were much more pacifist, and that's not to say they were pacifistic, but they were less into ganging up on other people and taking away their land. And most of those countries were recovered somewhere, like Spain and Greece, and some of those only very recently. Talking about, even Greece was quite recent.
Well, even Greece, though, I mean, didn't it used to be a lot bigger?
It used to include basically all of Turkey. That was stolen from them. Yeah, by a bunch of people that ganged up. Got into hordes. Hordes basically means a gang. And they went, and it wasn't just from the west. They stole land from lots and lots of people. They stole a lot of land in the
No, but it's interesting. I mean,
Indian subcontinent.
You watch something like Braveheart, and I know when I watched it, I was like, wow, were the Scottish ever a bunch of... Now, I wasn't meaning
Brutes.
anything rude or anything, because, I mean, my ancestry, right? But anyway, but it made me realize, wow, they were not as advanced, let's just say, in a kind of polite way.
The way to put it is civilized. People misinterpret that. That just means in cities, and generally if you live in cities, you develop writing eventually, and that sort of stuff. So
but I wouldn't say brutish. I would not say that.
It's hard to say.
I mean, just because you have to twist it, yeah. Just because somebody is, I didn't shake up the powder enough, eh?
Anyway, the way they were portrayed in Braveheart was kind of foolish. But that's because Mel Gibson was kind of giving them his own qualities, right? Which I think he thinks are studly or manly.
I don't know. I mean, there's the whole, like... They looked a little bit like maybe cavemen compared to who they were up against, but
yeah, well,
honestly,
Mel Gibson looks like one, too, and he acts like one, unfortunately. What's happening
here? No, I was just gonna say about. I'm still very tired because I didn't sleep well last night, or much. Past couple nights. Anyway, I was going to say that a lot of the time you hear about things like, you'll hear about the Celtic people, say, collecting heads. And you think, wow, okay, tough people. But then you look at the artwork too and you go, okay, well, not only that, right? I mean, and a lot of what you hear about comes from, a lot of it is, yeah, there's some truth to it and everything, but who's presenting this information? And is it more, a little more like propaganda maybe than it should be, or than it's fair? Right.
We're talking about the Romans' attitude towards the Celts, and they're going, they're such horrible brutes because they take their people they're giving capital punishment to, and they put them in wicker baskets or something like that, and then they burn them alive. That's all. But those criminals or convicts would have been presumably captured prisoners of war and bad criminals, murderers, so on and so forth. Yeah, I don't know that much about it. There might have been some awful exceptions where someone innocent was sacrificed. But I'm going, wow, that seems not just like hypocrisy, but what I call hyper-hypocrisy, because the Romans were amazing what they did to prisoners of war. And
or say the Christians who weren't going to fight back.
Innocent. Christians are innocent. And they, were throwing them to the lions, and they were tearing them apart and stuff like that. They made gladiators out of some of the prisoners of war, so they were fighting to the death for the entertainment of the Roman citizens and stuff like that. So the Romans doing that's shameful. They were way worse, from what I can tell, than the Celts or the Gauls or whatever. Shameful. And these sorts of things can't happen nowadays. And I should make clear, when I was talking about the Celts being, or the Scottish people being, and Braveheart being uncivilized or something like that, I'm a very large percentage Celtic origin. And a lot of that, maybe the majority of it's Irish, so. Taken in the wrong way.
No. No, I mean no offense. I think it's very interesting. And yeah, I don't.
I mean, ultimately, you got to make some sort of judgments about at least the relative aspects of culture. You know, there's a lot of fake left-wingers out there who they're always talking about the other and not coming down on the other, and yet they treat Southern whites, they treat white guys, they treat the Donald Trumps of the world as others. And you know, like frankly, when you're dealing with Donald Trump, you got to treat him like another, and you got to treat people who believe in racial superiority, whether they come from the southern United States or from the backwoods of Canada or the frontwoods of Canada or the cities of Canada. You know, you got to treat them like the other because they're treating you like the other. But the whole thing is, you know, like, it's just not white people that go around looking at people like the other. And like I say, there are a lot of fake left-wingers out there who just, all they're looking for is to make others of white people. They're as bad as Donald Trump.
No, but
and guess what? Even worse. You know,
I mean, when it comes down to
world.
it, I mean, if you look at things rationally, the Celtic world was colonized.
Yes, it was.
Right? And we think of when we think of our ancestry, we think, oh well, this is as it always was, but it wasn't. This, whatever we have now, is largely influenced by the culture of somebody else that was imposed on our ancestors, and then somehow, you know, this is what we ended up with. But and it's interesting to know that it really wasn't that long ago that these things happened. You know what I mean? Because you don't have a sense of it. You're born into the world and you think, well, this is as the world was. And you may have, you know, as you live longer, you may have seen things changing more or whatever, and
things have changed a lot since I was a kid.
No. So I don't know, but you don't get a sense of, like, maybe you do, I don't know. Like, James has ancestors who, like, he comes from very educated ancestors who did things like they were exploring and mapping the world and stuff or whatever.
That's on both sides of the family, weirdly enough. I thought it was mainly on my dad's side of the family. So I found out one of my ancestors was a Hudson's Bay explorer. So on my mom's side. And I thought he was just an explorer, and then I found out he's the guy who's given credit. Well, it's kind of silly. Given credit for discovering the main difference between Cree dialects, the 4 or 5 different dialects. Of course, he didn't discover it. The Crees would have understood only too well. But he's the first guy, white guy, to point it out. So, or apparently so. Yeah, the first time I discovered that, I was reading it with a guy who's of Cree ancestry.
What did he think about that? Did he have a laugh over it?
I noticed it before him.
Oh, really?
I said, this is my ancestor here. But don't take this seriously, what they're saying here. He had a laugh about it after that. He's a good guy. He is a good guy. Just haven't seen him for a while. Dylan is his name. Very good. Yeah, with him, he's the only person I've ever worked with. Well, there was a guy, we worked three in one of our presentations. The only person I've ever worked with where, except for this third guy, where I've got an A+ on the class presentation and haven't been stiffed for doing all the work. And frankly, he did the heavy managerial kind of work.
Oh, we did the PowerPoint. That's good.
Stuff I can't do.
Yeah.
There's a reason why we got the A+ in both presentations. And what he's going into is management, so sportsman.
Weird.
And I think he'll be one of the only management people who actually is competent. So good on him.
Anyway, I think that's all I have to say about it. I'd highly recommend it to everybody.
Yeah, it's fun time.
Even if you're not interested in Celtic, anything.
No.
If you think, I never need to know that, you will enjoy watching it. Anybody would.
So.